Star Wars Starfighter is one of the few projects I'm actually excited for right now, and we just got a big update from StarWars.com. Lucasfilm has now fully announced the cast for Star Wars Starfighter, and we've never quite seen a movie like this. So we already knew 3 stars of the film: Ryan Gosling, Matt Smith, and Mia Goth, the latter 2 being announced by the trades, with Ryan Gosling the face of the film at its announcement, and that already was a pretty big deal. We've discussed this before. It's really not very often that Star Wars goes with these big A-list celebrities, which Ryan Gosling certainly is. This is especially true for main characters. Some exceptions, of course, but Ryan Gosling is one of the biggest actors in Hollywood. Anyway, I'll read the press release in full. Lucasfilm has announced the full cast for the upcoming feature film from Sean Levy. Joining the previously announced Ryan Gosling, the film stars Flynn Gray, Matt Smith, Mia Goth, Aaron Pierre, Simon Bird, Jamel Westman, Daniel Ings, and Amy Adams. They also did include an image which shows Ryan Gosling sitting next to a child, the second billed actor, Flynn Gray. Now, this really isn't surprising. It's long been rumored that the film would feature Gosling trying to protect someone from an evil force, whether Imperial or First Order, whatever. Either way, I wish this image was in color because it looks really cool. I'm not sure if he's sitting on some sort of speeder or what. Reminds me a bit of the Corellian set from Solo. We discussed Matt Smith and Mia Goth in our past video. I really like both of these actors, great castings. I admittedly don't know a whole lot about Aaron Pierre, although he's got a lot of fans. Simon Bird is best known for the In-Betweeners, just screaming droid to me. Jamal Westman is best known as a stage actor, especially for his role in Hamilton. I'll admit, I don't know a whole lot about Daniel Ings. Then the name drawing most attention is, unsurprisingly, Amy Adams. I love Amy Adams. I think she's so great as both a serious and a comedic actress. In terms of science fiction, she was great in a smaller role in Her, and really amazing in a leading role in Arrival. Plus, of course, she's got a lot of Snyder fans from her time in the old DC cinematic universe. So that's the casting news. That doesn't, however, mean that we're not getting anyone else in the film. I think it's very possible, given the time period we're working with here, that we do see one of the sequel trilogy characters, whether that's Rey, Finn, or Poe. It makes too much sense. Rey especially, I think. Star Wars Starfighter has a lot on its plate. While The Mandalorian and Grogu represents the brand's return to theaters, Star Wars Starfighter is the first film set after Episode 9, so it will have a lot to do in establishing what the galaxy is like with the First Order, but also New Republic gone. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be The Phantom Menace, where we're focusing on trade disputes, taxation, planetary rights, things like that, but at the very least, this film is most likely going to have to establish who are the good guys in the galaxy at this point, who are the bad guys, who's running the show. They could really minimize how much of that is covered. I don't think they should. Arguably, the sequel trilogy did way too much to move away from the prequels, completely ignoring galactic politics in any sort of interesting way. My hope is that this movie doesn't make the same mistake, and also, given the title, that we do see some interesting new ship designs, some space battles, really the things lacking in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Honestly, I have a lot of hope for this film. I don't think, based on the director, that it's going to be anything super cerebral or even controversial like The Last Jedi. I think they are really aiming for a fun, widely appealing box office film. I think Star Wars has recognized that after, to be honest, a lot of time muddling the waters with Disney Plus and kind of crickets in the theaters, they need something appealing and something that will put butts on seats to keep the brand going in the right direction. Honestly, I really, really wish this were the next film instead of The Mandalorian and Grogu. You know, I've been thinking about doing a video on this, but this is one of the worst times I've ever seen. Probably the worst time, in fact, in terms of interest for Star Wars online. Look at your favorite Star Wars YouTubers, not just me, any of the big or small channels. We are all really just doing our best right now. But at some point, I mean, there's not a lot you can do. Pure lore videos aren't doing well. The news updates aren't doing well. What has me honestly most concerned is that even like anti-Disney or anti-Star Wars content isn't doing very well right now. So I will say on that note, it does help to support your favorite channels. YouTube nowadays is so heavily skewed towards trending topics and interest in topics overall. That combined with CTR, i.e. click-through rate, is what really determines whether a video is successful. Either way, production is finally starting on the next era of film storytelling. Can't wait to see Amy Adams performing her sequel trilogy version of Natasi Doll, and that should be very exciting. But really, that's all I have. Because this video is short, I'm going to end with a couple hashtag Ask Ek questions. As always, if you've got one you'd like to see answered, leave it down in the comments section with the hashtag Ask Ek. That's how I find them. All right, this one comes from I Am Snuggles, who says, I'm back with another question from my favorite Star Wars YouTuber. Thank you. Maybe I will do a full video on this if you want, but he's asking, what is your favorite piece of weird Star Wars lore? And honestly, I don't have a single answer. There's so much of Star Wars that hasn't been covered on YouTube. Like, if you haven't read the novels, you may not realize this, you are getting such a shallow look at the EU. Like, yeah, you'll see a video on Abeloth, Jason Solo, etc., but Fate of the Jedi, for example, or Legacy of the Force are each 9-book series. And those are just two, very limited examples. What I really enjoy about the expanded universe are the characters, especially in the Bantam era, that pop up time and time again. But in terms of obscurity, I really like the kind of strange one-off novels or comic issues that are just completely incongruent in terms of tone or whatever else with the rest of the universe. Alan Moore, for example, the creator of Watchmen, made 5 Star Wars comic issues. They're all completely wild. You've probably heard of Telotny Throws a Shape because it features the Bedlam spirits. They often get picked up because they're easy enough to find on Wikipedia or whatever else. But Blind Fury is also pretty fun. It's like a classic fantasy story with Luke Skywalker traveling into a tower, finding magical devices and creatures, and the shaman of the terrible glare. It's just completely tonally inconsistent of much of what comes from Star Wars, and that's what makes it a lot of fun. And that was often the case with those early Marvel Star Wars comics, or even the newspaper dailies. There's hundreds of issues of old comics and source books and more to go through, and honestly, YouTube has not even covered the main things. I've said this before, but Talon Karrde is one of the most important characters in the expanded universe, and I don't think he's got a lore video with over 10,000 views on him yet. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours, please, on all this and more down below.